Life is full of choices. Sometimes these choices are between conflicting alternatives, each with pros and cons. Some of these choices concern the food we eat each day, and what we choose has a big impact on ourselves and the planet around us. For example, as omnivores, we humans have the choice between a plant-based diet, animal-derived food sources, or some mixture of the two. What are the pros and cons of these two options? Pause the video now and do a little research, or discuss this issue with your peers. Come up with a list of pros and cons of these alternatives. Here's a list we came up with. How does our list compare to yours? This is clearly a contentious issue for many. Regardless of what we might think personally, there is data to suggest that many of us, in developed countries like the USA and Australia in particular, consume meat at a level that is unhealthy for us and detrimental to our environment. But reducing meat consumption is easier said than done. One place to start thinking about meat consumption is the Humble Hamburger, a major part of the way the world feeds itself. In Australia, nearly 300 million hamburgers are eaten each year, while in the US that number is over 50 billion. Once the domain of the all-beef patty, recent times have seen a proliferation of veggie burgers, with ingredients like black beans, mushrooms and beetroot in place of beef, and plant-based burgers with meat-free patties created to replace traditional recipes. Alternatively, some burger recipes attempt to mix beef with plant-based alternatives to combine familiar flavours with the nutritional environmental benefits of a plant-based protein source. One such protein source is textured soya protein. Soya beans are a common source of vegetable oil, and TSP is made from the low-fat, protein-rich material that remains as a result of the oil production process. As such, TSP is a cheap source of plant-based protein, low in fat and a good source of fibre. So what's the downside? TSP's nutty, slightly sweet flavour is quite different to beef, and its consistency makes patty production more complex due to its lack of fat. One way to have the best of both worlds is to blend TSP with minced beef in order to make a patty that is cheaper and higher in protein than an all-beef one, but still retains a familiar and popular taste and consistency of a traditional burger patty. Culinary genius. The question is, how much TSP and how much beef? And that is where mathematics comes into the kitchen. Maths can help us optimize our burger patty recipe, minimizing cost while ensuring that the recipe contains sufficient protein and fat to be both nutritious and delicious. Let's take a closer look at those two ingredients. The type of beef mince used in burger patties typically contains about 20 grams per 100 grams, or 20% protein, and about 15 grams per 100 grams, or 15% fat. TSP, when prepared for this sort of cooking, contains about 30 grams per 100 grams, or 30% protein, and about 1.2 grams per 100 grams, or 1.2% fat. My recipe for making a delicious 100-gram burger patty calls for at least 7 grams of fat for that juicy flame-grilled flavour and 24 grams of protein. Can you see why I can't just use beef or just use TSP to make my burger patty? Is it possible to make my burger patty out of 55 grams of beef and 40 grams of TSP, plus 5 grams of other ingredients? Pause the video now and answer these two questions. So, what amount of each ingredient should we use? We know that the 100-gram patty will contain some amount of beef mince. Let's call it X grams, and let's call the amount of TSP Y grams. Using these variables, I can express the amount of protein called for in my recipe as an inequality. 0.2x plus 0.3y is greater than or equal to 24. With a little rearranging, this inequality can be graphed and looks like this. When combined with information about fat content, as well as the size of my patty, this is the graph of the feasible region for this problem. A problem's feasible region is a set of all points x, y that satisfy its constraints. In other words, it is all the possible values of x grams of beef mince and y grams of TSP that satisfy the protein, fat and size requirements for my secret recipe. From all of these possibilities, how should we choose? One way is to focus on the almighty dollar. Beef mince for burger patties costs around $12 per kilo, while TSP costs around $3 per kilo. Using this information, I can calculate the cost associated with the different possibilities contained within the feasible region. For example, if I choose the point 52,46 from my feasible region, the cost of 52 grams of beef mince and 46 grams of TSP is as follows. Can you find a cheaper possibility? Choose a selection of points and calculate the cost at each of them. What do you notice? Hopefully this process can lead you to finding the optimal burger, the cheapest combination of ingredients for a tasty, healthy and cost-effective burger patty. If you are successful, you might like to consider some associated questions, like how would this optimal solution change if the price of one of the ingredients were to change, or if one of the ingredients were to be increased to create a premium patty. Questions worth chewing over.